It's really my pleasure today to introduce our guest, Commissioner Beth Bye. I had the pleasure of working with Beth for many years, we won't say how many, and her vision for early childhood, I remember when she first had a vision for building the Office of Early Childhood. She came before the committees at the legislature, and she had this one slide, and she showed all the different agencies that had programs for children, and it looked like spaghetti. So it was this vision of, mishmash that she said, we have to stop this. We have to have an organized agency that really supports families and children. Beth has a long history. She was a U.S. Senator. Now you're a U.S. Senator. She was a senator from West Hartford for many years and really has had a long career in early childhood. Her degrees are in early childhood, and I first got to know Beth when she was the director of the Early Childhood Center at St. Joseph's College, the lab there. So she comes with great enthusiasm, passion, and experience, and we're so happy to have you here. Thank you. One thing. Did you notice all the library books on the table? We want to thank Silas Bronson Library for having our books to remind us to read to our children.
Thank you so much, Liz. You're so lucky to have Liz in Waterbury and all the work that she's doing, and she gets the early years and how important they are. We have worked together since 1997 on advocating for young children, so I also just have to recognize my good friend Salim Nujame. He was one of my closest colleagues at the Capitol, and he helped with the vote, you'll recall, Salim, on the Office for Early Childhood and helping to pass that. And he understands how important those early years are, as well as how important it is to create good jobs. So it's the perfect combination. I'm so glad to be with you.
Love you, buddy.
Yeah, I love you too. So I want to thank you all for your work for United Way, and this movie did such a super job of talking about some of the challenges that they're trying to address in your community and some of the challenges we're trying to address at the Office for Early Childhood. Now that we understand the brain, the science behind why children are showing up to school with so many challenges, our challenge is to say, how can we help support those young brains? It's important when they're young, and I know I was an employer for 30 years, ran small businesses with the smallest margin, child care centers, and it affects our workforce. If kids don't learn those self-regulation skills early, we're dealing with it as employers. And so this is something that impacts kids their whole lives. So I'm so grateful that you show this movie and bring it to the whole community to try to understand these challenges that we face as we understand early brain development. And Liz said something like, oh, you're back in Waterbury again. I love coming to Waterbury. The Office of Early Childhood is about bringing multiple agencies together, bringing a lot of different points of view together, and working together for young children and families. Waterbury's got that down. That's why the National League of Cities is here. Your mayor and your school board work together. They don't seem to be fighting like in other communities. I'm sure it's never 100%, but the goal in Waterbury always is how can we support greater Waterbury. I was asked to just tell you quickly what we do at the Office for Early Childhood, and then I want to talk a little bit about the ACEs work that we're doing. So we're charged with coordinating state services for children birth to 5 with the goal of improving outcomes for children and families. And I think it's important that we say both because, no matter what we do for the child, we also need to support that family because that's where it runs through. The parents are with their child their whole life. I knew as a child care program director and toddler teacher that if I couldn't support my parents and help them understand child development and support that child, the child was not going to have a great outcome. 2 years is not enough. So we work with both. Our work starts when people are pregnant, and I know there's some home visitors here. So if a parent is pregnant and people are concerned about that parent because of drugs and alcohol or mental health or just extreme poverty, they can be referred to home visiting, and our office will send a home visitor. We support about 3,000 families in Connecticut with home visiting. We also, at the Office of Early Childhood, oversee Birth to 3, which is the program for children birth to 3 who have special education needs. They're in need of special supports, and that is also delivered in the home with coaching with parents. Raise your hands if you know someone who's benefited from Birth to 3. Look at that. So this is a way that we're reaching out to families in those early years to teach them about early brain development and to support them if they have a child with a disability. We also regulate, everyone loves the regulators, 14,000 early childhood settings in Connecticut. So your preschools, your child care, your family child care programs that are licensed, before and after school programs. In Connecticut, I think we should be really proud of this. We have enough licensing staff to do an unannounced visit once a year in every single one of those 14,000 settings. So for parents, that's a really good feeling. And if there's a challenge, we go back unannounced again. And if there's another concern around health and safety, we go back again, always unannounced. And we come at it in a supportive way as well. We know we need more licensed childcare. We're not trying to shut people down. We're trying to have more programs open up. We also oversee school readiness in state-funded centers, which I know you have in Waterbury. And we work to improve the quality of early childhood. So that's sort of broadly what we do. Did I forget anything, Liz? I think I got most of it. Okay. We also host the Head Start Collaboration Office. Head Start goes from the feds to local, but we have a staff person who works with those local Head Start organizations. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my past 3 weeks and what is hitting me as commissioner. We are hosting 9 listening sessions in every part of Connecticut, and you wouldn't believe how one little state could have so many different parts to it. This is really important to Governor Lamont. He has asked us to get out there, hear how the services are going, hear how we can improve services, and he's also charged us with working across agency lines. So I was out in Killingly, very different than Waterbury, listening to people in the community who are working with children birth to 5 and parents. And over 2 hours, they worked in small groups and talked about the challenges they were seeing. It just blew me away. So this is children birth to 5. And the outcome of that meeting was there are huge concerns about mental and behavioral health for children birth to age 5. That is the overwhelming challenge that people were saying to me. Mental health with children 0 to 5. At the same time, those of you who raised your hands about birth to 3 would also say we have a problem in Connecticut with the transition from birth to 3 to special education preschool. That it's a very hard transition for families. It moves from being family-based to sort of institutional-based. And so the legislature said to us, you have to look at this problem and figure out how we can better serve young children with special education needs. So we've met with providers, with nonprofits. We have a working group at the Capitol where we've brought in all the experts to say, how can we improve this? And do you know what's overwhelming those conversations where we're supposed to be talking about transition to special education preschool from birth to 3? So now I'm talking birth to 3. What's overwhelming those conversations is we need to talk about the mental and behavioral health challenges that we're seeing. We don't know how to manage it. It's exploding. And so most people are pegging it to the last 10 years. They're saying in the last 10 years, we are seeing both an increase in the severity of symptoms and in the number of children with behavioral health challenges. And I thought the movie did a really good job of showing what stress does to the brain. And so basically what it's saying to me is we're seeing children birth to 5 more stress than ever. And when children get stress, they get dysregulated, right? They fall on the floor and scream. You know, children don't have the tools. If they're not getting that warm, supportive care and they don't learn how to get out of problems, they dysregulate and act out. And I think we all know what that looks like. Kids really thrive on structure and routine. You know, as a toddler teacher, when you're one person and there are 8 toddlers in the room, well, I had an assistant, but even one person to 4 2-year-olds, you know what that would be like. It's challenging. So you better set up a structure and a routine that the kids follow. Otherwise, and parents know this, you're in trouble. If you don't have a routine around bedtime with young children, they'll take you to the cleaners. You're just round and round. Parents, grandparents all know this. So structure and routine's important, because everywhere there's not a structure and routine, the brain is making a lot of decisions. Like if my child knows it's 2 stories, 2 songs, then they're going to sleep, they're not thinking, how am I going to get around this and get to stay up and watch another show? They know that's there. So it takes stress off of them, and the structure and routine carry them. So my background is in developmental psychology, so I'm trying to think what's changed over the past 10 years so much that we're seeing this spike. I don't know if you all have ideas about anything what's changed in the past 10 years. So, technology, definitely. Work schedules, parents' work schedules aren't as predictable, particularly low income. When we passed welfare reform in Connecticut, we've set up an early childhood system that was the center will be open from 7 till 5:30 so parents can go to work. Guess what? In 2019, we've got to go out and listen to the community if we're going to be responsive and say, what are parents' work schedules now? We're serving mostly families who live below 50% of the state median income with child care support, so what are their work schedules now? That's not it. So on top of that, family schedules are unpredictable. And guess what? If it snows, they tell you to stay home. And if it's a sunny day, they call you with 3 hours and say, can you come? We're having a rush. And now you're a parent, you got 2 kids, you got to get to Barnes & Noble to go to work or wherever else. So we've got technology, we've got increased sort of work schedules that are different. We also have increase in child poverty. And another thing, which if you follow me on Facebook, give it a go. There's so much less time for free play. I see enough people out there my age that know that we learn to self-regulate by running out the back door and playing kickball or kick the can or climbing up the trees, or we just were gone and we created rules and structure. And if we got in an argument with a neighbor, guess what? We figured it out. Right? So we pushed through some challenges starting when we were 5 years old, out the door. Kids aren't having time outside, which is important to the brain, and kids aren't having time to sort of solve problems themselves. And the other thing is, with all good intentions, everybody wants a kid to read in 3rd grade. But the data is not there that teaching them to read when they're 3 makes that any better. We've removed play, and we've pushed down academic. We do know that kids with good executive function who learn to self-regulate are better readers. But we don't listen to that research. We're so worried that they'll learn their letters and their letter sounds when they're 3 and 4 that we're missing out on teaching them to go to dramatic play and work out those challenges and figure out how to play with each other. So on top of everything, kids are stressed and they have less release because we adults are worried about what's going to happen when they're 18, when they're 3. So I think we need to really look at, we know how important executive function is, that ability to self-regulate, but we don't work it into our school curriculums, or we're starting to. I'm starting to see it more and more. So these combination of factors add up to more dysregulated children who have less executive function, so they act out. They're using the tools they have, which are not many. So your job in Waterbury and our job at OEC is helping to give children these skills, helping to figure out some of these challenges. My academic background is studying attachment. So parent-child attachment is very important. It's at the foundation of healthy emotional development. Now I watch parents literally walking down the street with a stroller with the 6-month-old like this. It's really true. I see families out to dinner. Every family member is on their phone. And if the 2-year-old acts up, they're handed an iPad. Right? Do you remember when the 2-year-old acted up and you said, come on, we're going for a walk till our food gets here? That leads to one-on-one time. That leads to relationship building. That leads to, when we go back, you're going to have to sit down, setting expectations. Instead, the child acts up, They just set up, I see it, they just set up an iPad. So the child is not learning how to regulate their own emotions. And the parent is connected to the phone instead of being connected to that child. You just see, like, when I saw that parent holding the baby in the video, I thought, today that parent would be holding the baby like this and reading their Facebook feed. And it's not all parents, and I know a lot of parents are really focused on the technology, but I know at my office I'm trying to think about what messages can we send out with some of the funding we have to the community around attachment, around how important it is to put your phone down or to say no more than an hour a day on the tablet for the child. I'm not an idiot. I know there's no avoiding it. When you see a parent walking into school with kids, if the 2-year-old sees the corner of the iPhone out of their parent's pocket, they're pulling it. It's designed to get our attention and keep our attention. There are people making millions of dollars. They're very good at keeping our attention. So we've got to think about how can we get our attention. So at OEC, we're watching this and thinking about how to make it better, and I'm sure you are in Waterbury too. And we're putting out professional development, and specifically with ACEs, with the Adverse Childhood Experiences. Our whole staff saw that movie, and we're raising that issue with our providers and how do we address adverse childhood experiences. So there are a couple things we're rolling out statewide. One is a pyramid approach, which the word pyramid simply means, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's how do we make every classroom healthy for children's mental health and emotional health? What are the baseline things that you need in the classroom? What are the baseline skills that teachers need? And then as kids, you get kids more and more needy, what are the interventions for those children? And trying to give tools out to the child care programs to share with parents about dealing with kids who are having some behavioral challenges in the early years before it gets worse. I know in Waterbury, it's so cool, you are rolling out Sparkler, which is an app for parents. So now I'm telling them to get on the technology. Stick with me here. Which is a screening. So parents can see this is where my child is supposed to be with their language, with their physical development, and this is where they are. And if they need intervention, it automatically feeds a 211 info line, and the family gets a call to say, hey, I see your child's doing really well with physical development, but you have worries about their language development. Do you want us to send a home visitor? Would you like Birth to 3 to come do an assessment? So we're trying to connect with parents earlier, and in Waterbury, you have one of the most unique approaches. When you go to the WIC office, that's where parents are going to get food and formula, and the earliest years you're getting to them. So you're piloting that for us to see if it works. If it works in Waterbury, we're going to roll it out with Department of Public Health to other cities in the state. So we really appreciate that. We also have a program where we send mental health professionals out to child care centers. If children are in danger of being expelled from preschool or child care, we have an intervention, a number they can call, and we'll come support their mental health. And again, it seems funny, birth to 3, birth to 5 mental health, but we have this clinical program and we're doing it with DCF. So the good thing about doing it with DCF is that it's all children across Connecticut, and we can reach more of that. We're also working in Connecticut. You know, we talk a lot about workforce. Salim, you need your people to come to work, right? In Connecticut, we are short 50,000 infant toddler spaces for parents who need to go to work. In Connecticut, we are short 50,000 infant toddler spaces. Have any of you tried to find infant child care in the room? How'd it go? Can't find it. Then the parents can't go to work. So what parents are doing is they're patching things together. One day the mother-in-law will watch, another day the father will work a second shift. They're just patching it together. And when we talk about how important structure and routine is for kids, that's not so great. So we're working with people like Team, David Morgan at Team, and he is rolling out another innovation, which are staffed family childcare networks. So if we don't have enough center space, and we have people in the community who want to work and who can work with an organization like Team to grow their skills, then we can build childcare center in neighborhoods where parents live instead of in a center. And so I know in Waterbury you've created 100 spots with this family childcare initiative, and I know you're coming to my office today to connect with other people. So that's been really helpful. So I think that for OEC and for Waterbury, it's critical that we see these early years as so important to children's development, that we coordinate services, us with Waterbury, the state with the towns, and you, as you heard so well from United Way, across your community. Governor Lamont has been clear to us that there are not to be silos, that if we can do a program with DCF, we are to do it with them. We don't need to all create our own home visiting or our own interventions. One thing we know is there'll continue to be changes, whether it's technology or something else. But one thing we can keep constant are the community connections that organizations like United Way creates. And so I just hope you all keep working together. We promise to keep working with you for the children and families in the state because it's a great place. People live here to raise their families here, and they know it's a great place for education, but we've got to make sure that in those earliest years before they hit the schools, the children and families are getting what they need. So I really appreciate you having me, and I hope the rest of the meeting goes great. Thanks.